You want to know what a $340 million defense system sounds like when it dies? It doesn't crash. It doesn't throw error codes across the screen. It just goes quiet, like someone cut the power to the whole building at once. I was sitting in my truck in the Vanguard Cyber Systems parking garage, laptop open on the passenger seat, coffee gone cold in the cup holder, watching Fortress lock itself down in front of a room full of Navy admirals. The countdown hit 0. 3 screens went dark simultaneously, and Trent Harmon's career imploded in real time. The best part? He had no idea I was watching from 12 blocks away. He had no idea I'd triggered the whole thing from that parking spot, but I'm getting ahead of myself. My name's Miles Crawford, 53 years old, 20 years Navy intelligence before I got into the private sector, then 15 years at Vanguard Cyber Systems building what eventually became the most advanced naval cybersecurity platform the Department of Defense had ever contracted. Fortress wasn't just a job to me. It was the thing I'd spent the better part of my adult life building. A system that protected Naval Station Norfolk's power grid, port access controls, base communications, the kind of infrastructure that, if it goes down, people notice fast. That Tuesday started like every other Tuesday, until 8:03 a.m. I walked into Trent Harmon's office, thinking we were going over the contract renewal prep. The Navy evaluation team was coming in 2 days. My demo checklist was done. My team was ready. I'd done this before, and I knew exactly what those admirals wanted to see. Instead, I found Trent pacing behind his desk like a man who already knew he was doing something he couldn't take back. "Miles, sit down. No coffee. No small talk." That told me everything. "We've brought in a consultant," he said, "someone who understands modern digital engagement and how we present ourselves to the market." I'd heard that kind of language before. In the Navy, when someone talked about presentation instead of mission, it meant someone with rank was about to make a bad call and needed cover for it. That's when she walked in. Paige Harmon, Trent's niece. 23 years old, phone already up, filming the office like she was scouting locations for a brand deal. I'd seen her profile before, 180,000 TikTok followers, lifestyle content, the occasional teaser she'd posted from Vanguard's lobby without anyone's authorization. In one video, she'd panned across our building exterior and captioned it, "Can't say what I'm doing here, but it's giving classified vibes." That post was still love when I walked into that office. "Uncle Trent says you're going to walk me through how the whole system works," she said, still not looking up from her phone. I'm thinking a behind-the-scenes series. My audience loves that kind of authentic access content. I looked at Trent. "You want me to train her on Fortress?" Paige brings a fresh perspective. "The board thinks. Fortress runs the port access controls for Naval Station Norfolk," I said. "Active base communications, power grid failsafes. This isn't a content opportunity." Paige finally looked up. "I took a cybersecurity elective in college. I'm not, completely clueless." She said it without any edge. That was the part that got me. She genuinely didn't understand why that statement wasn't reassuring. Trent's face went flat. "This isn't a discussion, Miles. I need you aligned with where we're taking this company." I've sat across from Navy commanders who use that exact tone, the tone that means the decision's already made and they just need your signature on it. "I didn't sign then either. I won't do it," I said. He picked up his desk phone, "Send security up." 8:03 a.m., done at Vanguard, 15 years, gone in about 40 seconds. Owen Pruitt and Bryce Lund walked me out, both good guys, both former military, both looking at the elevator buttons like they were the most interesting things in the building. In the elevator, Owen said quietly, "This stinks, Crawford." Bryce just shook his head. I packed my desk in about 12 minutes, photos of Ryan at his baseball games, his MVP trophy from regionals, the two of us at an Orioles game last summer, my old unit photo from my last deployment, a coffee mug Ryan had given me for Father's Day, world's okayest dad, which I thought was funnier than world's best dad anyway. I grabbed the personal stuff first. What I actually needed was already in my jacket pocket. A USB drive with the original patent filings, the LLC documentation, and the administrative keys to Fortress's Level 12 protocols. Paige appeared in my office doorway while I was packing, phone still up. "Uncle Trent said don't take any company property. Everything I need is right here," I said, and patted my jacket pocket. She looked at the pocket. Then back at her phone. She had no idea what I meant. That was fine. She'd understand soon enough. The walk to the elevator felt long. Owen and Bryce flanked me the whole way. As the doors closed, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to Dana Reyes, my lead developer. Storm incoming. Watch the 10 a.m. demo closely. She texted back in under a minute. What did you do, Miles? Nothing yet, I typed back. But they're about to find out what happens when you fire the guy who holds all the keys. My F-150 had never felt more like a command post. I pulled out of the Vanguard parking garage at 8:44 a.m. and drove exactly 2 blocks before I stopped, put it in park, and opened my laptop. Not because I was in a hurry, because I wanted to be close enough to watch, but far enough that nobody would think to look for me. Here's the thing about Fortress that nobody at Vanguard fully understood. Not Trent, not Nolan Briggs, who they'd just promoted to CTO. Not any of the engineers they'd hired in the last 3 years. I hadn't just built the system. I'd built it with a specific contingency in mind. 6 years ago, when Claire was going through treatment, the medical bills got bad fast. We're talking the kind of bad where you start doing math on your retirement account at 2 in the morning. I kept working. I kept building. But I also started thinking clearly about what I actually owned versus what I was just being paid to create. Those are 2 very different things, and most engineers never stop to figure out which one they're doing. I called Reed Calloway, an attorney I'd used for some contract work years back. We spent about 3 hours going through everything, what I'd built, what Vanguard had rights to, where the line was. What we figured out was this: Vanguard owned the right to use Fortress as long as certain conditions were in place. The core architecture, the patents, the foundational code that made the whole thing actually function, that belonged to Crawford Defense LLC. My mother, Margaret, was the primary stakeholder. I'd set it up that way deliberately because I knew that if anything ever went sideways, I needed the ownership sitting somewhere nobody at Vanguard would think to look. It didn't look. Not once in 15 years. Reed had been waiting for my call ever since. I logged into Fortress through the level 12 administrative channel, a back-end layer I'd built into the system from day one that existed completely outside of Vanguard's network. The screen came up clean and quiet. Welcome, primary architect. All systems nominal. Level 12 armed and standing by. I checked the time, 8:47 a.m. The Navy evaluation was scheduled for 10 a.m. Trent had a conference room full of admirals coming in 73 minutes to watch a live demonstration of a system he thought he owned outright. I sat there for a moment with my hand over the keyboard. I want to be honest about this part. I wasn't feeling triumphant. I was thinking about 15 years, about the original team that had built Fortress in a converted warehouse space we'd rented on the east side of Norfolk, working weekends and pulling all-nighters because we actually believed in what we were building. I was thinking about Dana and Cole and Sloan, who were probably somewhere in that building right now, going about their morning, not knowing what was about to happen. I activated the protocol. The countdown started. 73 minutes. I drove to Reed's office downtown. He met me at the door, no small talk, just waved me toward the conference table. Through his window on the 18th floor, I could see the Vanguard building about 15 blocks out. Trent's office was on the 12th floor. From this distance, it just looked like glass and steel, same as every other building on the block. Nothing about it looked like a place where someone was about to lose everything. We spent the next 45 minutes going through the documentation. Patent filings, LLC structure, the licensing terms, specifically the clause about primary architect employment continuity and security clearance transfer protocol. The language was tight. Reed had made sure of that years ago. The moment Vanguard terminated my employment without completing the proper clearance handoff procedures, the licensing agreement became inactive automatically. They didn't need to do anything wrong on paper. They just needed to fire me, which they had at 8:03 a.m. They'll claim you engineered this, Reed said, not as a warning, just as a fact. I did engineer it, I said. That's the point. He almost smiled. You want to be in the building across the street at 10? I want to be in my truck. At 9:58 a.m., I parked 2 blocks from Vanguard and opened my laptop again. I could see the countdown in the administrative panel. 0:31:04, 0:31:03, 0:31:02. The Vanguard conference room on the 8th floor had been set up to impress. 3 large screens displaying Fortress's interface in high definition. Their engineers at support stations along the wall. Nolan Briggs at the main console, wearing a new blazer that still had the fold lines in it from the store. General Laura Holt sat at the head of the table with her evaluation team. 3 other senior officers and 4 defense contractors. She'd been assessing naval defense systems since before Nolan was in middle school. I'd met her once 2 years back at a contractor briefing in D.C. She had the look of someone who asked one question and already knew if you were going to pass or fail before you opened your mouth. Trent stood at the front of the room doing his prepared remarks. Smooth, practiced, the kind of delivery you get from a man who's been selling things his whole life and genuinely can't tell the difference between a good product and a good pitch. Then Nolan entered the first command sequence. The screens flickered. System architect authentication required. Nolan frowned and typed faster. Just a sync issue, sir. Give me 1 second. Access denied. Primary licensing agreement inactive. I watched the timestamp on my laptop. 10:01 a.m. Countdown at 0:30:17. Trent's smile didn't move, but his eyes did. He looked at Nolan the way a man looks at a car that won't start when he's already late. Nolan. I don't understand this, sir. There's a level 12 flag here, but I've never seen this protocol before. It's not in any of our internal documentation. The screens flashed red. Fortress lockdown initiated. Time remaining, 0.2944. Contact primary architect to restore access. General Holt leaned forward slowly. Mr. Harmon, is there a problem with your system? Trent straightened his jacket. Absolutely not, General. Routine security protocol. We'll have it cleared up in just a moment. He turned to Nolan and dropped his voice, but not low enough. Fix this right now. Nolan's fingers were moving fast across the keyboard, sweat already showing at his collar. Sir, I'm trying. The system is responding, but it's not accepting any of our admin credentials. It's like the root access was never transferred to us in the first place. That's because it wasn't. I was watching the timestamp on my laptop, 10:03 a.m. Countdown at 0:27:21. My phone buzzed. Dana, texting from inside the building. They have no idea what level 12 is. Nolan just called AT. I called the vendor. Vendor says it's not their layer. I typed back, it's not anyone's layer. That's the point. A few seconds passed. Miles, what did you actually build in there? Everything. I typed. Get Cole and Sloan. You three stay visible. Don't go anywhere near that conference room. I set the phone down and watched the clock. Back in that conference room, things were getting worse faster than Trent had expected. One of General Holt's aides leaned over and said something quietly to her. She nodded once, then looked toward the corner of the room. Paige was still there. Nobody had told her to leave. She was standing near the back wall, phone up, live streaming the whole thing. The caption she'd typed read, "Big things happening at Uncle's company today, Navalife Corporate Girl defense." She had no idea the conference was supposed to be restricted. Nobody had thought to tell her, because nobody had thought she'd actually need to be told. One of the contractors at the table noticed the phone first. He tapped the officer next to him. That officer leaned toward General Holt. General Holt turned and looked at Paige directly. Then she looked at Trent. Mr. Harmon. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Is that individual live streaming this evaluation? Trent turned around. He saw the phone. He saw the little red dot in the corner of Paige's screen. He saw the viewer count climbing. The color left his face. Paige put the phone down. Leave the room. But I'm in the middle of now. She left. Her heels clicked fast down the hallway, but the stream had already been running for 14 minutes. Whatever the admirals had said in that room, whatever had been visible on those screens, it was already out there. I sat in my truck and watched the countdown. 0:19:08. Trent's assistant appeared in the conference room doorway and handed him a folded note. He read it, and whatever was on that paper made him look like he'd aged 5 years in 10 seconds. He excused himself from the table, stepped into the hallway, and called someone. I found out later he'd tried to reach me first, straight to voicemail. Then he called Vanguard's general counsel. Then he called an outside firm. Nobody had an answer for level 12 because level 12 had never been disclosed to anyone. Back in the room, General Holt waited. She was patient about it, the way senior officers are patient, not because they're calm, but because they've already made their decision and they're just giving you time to confirm it. At 10:17 a.m., the countdown hit 0. All 3 screens went dark at the same time. Then, after about 4 seconds of complete silence, a single line of white text appeared on the center screen. Fortress in protected mode. All access suspended. For licensing inquiries, contact Crawford Defense LLC. Authorized representative, Margaret Crawford. General Holt read it once. Then she gathered her materials, slow, deliberate, and stood. Her team followed without a word. The contractors started packing up. Nobody made eye contact with Trent. "Mr. Harmon," she said at the door, "your core system is inaccessible during a live contract evaluation. A member of your team live-streamed a restricted briefing to the public, and the only person who can apparently restore access is someone you terminated this morning." She paused. "We'll be in touch." They filed out in formation. The door closed behind them. I drove downtown to Reed's office. We ordered sandwiches and waited. The calls started before noon. Vanguard's legal team, their outside counsel. Trent himself twice. I let them all go to voicemail. Around 12:30, Nolan called from what sounded like a stairwell. "Miles." His voice was tight. "I know how this morning went, and I'm not calling to relitigate that. I need help. Nobody here can access the root system. We've had 3 outside security firms try to get past level 12 in the last 2 hours, and none of them have gotten anywhere. System's working exactly the way it's supposed to, Nolan. It's just not working for Vanguard anymore. The board is talking full reinstatement. VP of Engineering Equity Options. Whatever you want, Miles, just name it." I looked out Reed's window at the Vanguard building in the distance. It's too late for that conversation. There was a long pause on the line. "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done 15 years ago. Build something on my own terms." I had a 3 p.m. meeting with Renee Ashford at Atlantic Strategic Partners. Renee had been doing billion-dollar defense deals since before half of Vanguard's executive team graduated college. When I walked into her conference room, she was already on her second coffee and had a stack of documents on the table that her legal team had clearly been building since morning. Atlantic was prepared to invest significantly in acquiring Fortress through Vanguard, she said, sliding the top folder across to me. "That path is obviously closed now. But your attorney was kind enough to send over the Crawford Defense LLC filings this morning." She tapped the folder. "Every core patent, every foundational architecture component, it was never Vanguard's to sell. They had licensing rights," I said. Past tense. "So?" She folded her hands. "What do you want?" That afternoon, I sat across from Renee Ashford in a conference room at Atlantic Strategic Partners that had a view of half of Norfolk. Renee had been making defense industry deals since before the internet existed. She had the kind of reputation where people returned her calls on the first ring. She was already on her second coffee when I walked in, and she looked like someone who'd had a very interesting morning. "Our legal team has been busy since about 11 a.m., she said, sliding a folder across the table. "Every core patent, every foundational innovation that makes Fortress worth $340 million. It all traces back to Crawford Defense LLC. She tapped the folder. "Vanguard has been operating under a licensing agreement they apparently never fully read. They had full usage rights," I said, "as long as certain conditions stayed intact. Conditions that were voided at 8:03 this morning." She leaned back. "So, what do you want?" I'd thought about this moment for a long time, not in a revenge fantasy kind of way. More like how you plan an extraction. You know the objective, you know your assets, you figure out the route before you're in the field. I told her I wanted to build the company Vanguard should have been. American-owned, veteran-operated, focused on the actual mission instead of the quarterly pitch deck. Fortress had the capability to protect more than just Norfolk, port infrastructure up and down the East Coast, reserve bases, power grid fail-safes for facilities that couldn't afford a 4-hour outage. That work mattered. It had always mattered. I just needed to do it without someone like Trent Harmon deciding which corners to cut. I had 3 conditions. Dana, Cole, and Sloan came with me. They'd built Fortress alongside me for over a decade. Cole had written half the port access authentication code. Sloan had designed the fail-safe architecture from scratch. Dana could troubleshoot a level 12 fault in her sleep. They deserved to see their work land somewhere with real leadership. No backdoors, no exceptions. Not for investors, not for government agencies outside of proper legal channels. I'd spent 20 years in Navy intelligence watching what happens when you build exceptions into systems that are supposed to protect people. You don't do it, not ever. The launch had to be public. The defense community needed to know exactly who built Fortress, who tried to hand it to a 23-year-old with a phone, and how it ended. Renee didn't hesitate on any of it. Done, and I'll make a few calls personally to make sure the third one gets the right coverage. Her legal team joined by video at 3 p.m. We worked through the details for 2 hours. By 5 o'clock, Crawford Defense Technologies was incorporated. The patents transferred cleanly out of Margaret's LLC. Fortress had a new home. I was on my back deck grilling burgers when Trent finally got through. I almost didn't answer, then I figured he'd earned 90 seconds. Miles. His voice had that tight quality of a man who'd been in emergency meetings all day and hadn't eaten. The board wants to talk. Full reinstatement. VP of Engineering. We can discuss equity, complete technical autonomy. Trent. I flipped a burger. Let it sizzle for a second. You made your decision at 8:03 this morning. You looked at 15 years of work and decided a TikTok consultant was a smarter investment. That's on you. You sabotaged. I built a contingency into a system I created. Using intellectual property I legally owned because I had the foresight to protect it. That's not sabotage. That's engineering. Silence on the line. Crawford Defense Technologies launches tomorrow, I said. You should get some sleep. I hung up and blocked the number. There'd be more calls, board members, maybe some government liaisons, but I was done negotiating with people who treated national security like a line item to be optimized. Ryan came out to the deck, still in his baseball cleats, dirt on his left knee from practice. He looked at me the way teenagers look at you when they're trying to figure out if the adult situation is serious or not. Dad. Some kids at school were talking about a video, a Navy meeting that went bad at your company. That was Vanguard's meeting, I said. Not mine anymore. He thought about that. Are we going to be okay? I handed him a plate. We're better than okay. We're starting over on our terms this time. He nodded slowly. Then, Mom texted, said she saw something on the news, said you looked calm. That made me laugh. Claire and I hadn't worked in a long time, but she'd always respected the work ethic. Some things don't change even when everything else does. My phone rang. Margaret. Miles, honey, some man named Trent has called me 4 times today. He keeps offering me money for paperwork I signed years ago. He sounds absolutely desperate. What did you tell him? I told him I don't do business with people who fire my son without cause, and that anyone who needs to call a 74-year-old woman 4 times in one afternoon clearly has bigger problems than I can solve. A pause. Now explain to me exactly what is going on. I laughed. Really laughed. The kind that comes from somewhere deep in your chest when the tension of a whole day finally breaks. I filled her in on everything. The firing, the countdown, the demo, the admirals walking out, Renee Ashford, the new company. She listened without interrupting, which for Margaret was a minor miracle. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then, so that paperwork I signed all those years ago turned out to matter. More than Trent Harmon will ever know, I said. The next morning, Crawford Defense Technologies made it official. Dana had the demo equipment running before 8 a.m. Cole and Sloan were at the support stations. The room was full of defense reporters, industry analysts, and 2 government liaisons. Renee handled the opening remarks. At exactly 10:47 a.m., the same time Vanguard's demonstration had collapsed 24 hours earlier, I signed the incorporation documents. The questions came fast. Mr. Crawford, Vanguard is characterizing this as deliberate sabotage. I spent 15 years building Fortress to protect naval infrastructure from the kind of threats that don't care about quarterly earnings. The only failure was a business decision made at 8:03 a.m. yesterday morning. Were you an employee when the patents were filed? I was an American citizen protecting intellectual property through legal means. The licensing agreement was clear. Vanguard ended it. I didn't. Ryan texted from school around noon. Dad, you're trending. My history teacher showed the class an article. This is insane. I typed back, picked a pizza place. We're celebrating tonight. 3 fire emojis, a pizza slice. That was enough. Here's the thing I want to say about all of it, and I mean this straight, not as some tidy lesson at the end of a story. It was never really about Trent. The satisfaction of watching his demo collapse was real. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but that wasn't the point. The point was 15 years of work landing somewhere it was going to be taken seriously. The point was Dana and Cole and Sloan getting to see Fortress used the way they'd built it to be used. The point was Ryan going off to college next year, knowing his father didn't fold when someone with a title told him his experience didn't matter anymore. Trent looked at Fortress and saw a contract value. He looked at me and saw a guy who was too set in his ways to get with the new program. He was right about one thing. I was set in my ways. I believe the people who build something are the ones who own it. I believe national defense infrastructure isn't a content series. I believe that experience doesn't have an expiration date just because someone younger walked through the door. They fired me at 8:03 a.m. By 10:47 a.m., the next day I was sitting in my own company, watching my team run a flawless demo with a contract pipeline that Renee said would take us through the next 6 years minimum. That's worth more than anything Trent Harmon could have offered me in that elevator, and that, as Ryan would say, is pretty awesome. Trent looked at Fortress and saw a contract. He never understood that the most dangerous person in any organization isn't the one with the title, it's the one who actually built the thing everyone else depends on. They fired me at 8:03 a.m. thinking I'd walk out empty-handed. What they didn't count on was 15 years of quiet preparation walking out the door right alongside me.